Hello, good morning, and welcome to our panel discussion on why Sydney is Australia's home of fintech. We're coming to you live from Sydney and Singapore as part of the World Fintech Festival in Sydney, a showcase hosted by Investment New South Wales in collaboration with Stone & Chalk. My name is Lampotang. I'm the General Manager of Stone & Chalk in Sydney. For those of you who don't know Stone & Chalk, we were set up in 2015 as a not-for-profit to help fintech startups commercialise and grow. Many of us know us as the original home of Australian fintechs. We've from 40 startups in 2015, we now have over 200 startups based in our hubs in Sydney, Melbourne and Adelaide, covering a range of emerging technologies, not just fintech. We've got regtech, insurtech, proptech, cybersecurity, etc. And currently 100 fintechs call Stone & Chalk home, with 80 of them being located in our Sydney premises. Before I introduce the panel, in the spirit of reconciliation, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm on in Sydney, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their leaders, past, present, and emerging. Also, today is an important day to remember those who have fallen during previous wars, conflicts, and peacekeeping operations. In Australia, we observe 1 minute of silence at 11 a.m. in each state and territory, which would explain why we started this webinar a little bit later. So back to the subject of today's panel, why Sydney is Australia's home of fintech. Some of the reasons are very objective. For example, Sydney has the largest population and economy in Australia, and it's also Australia's largest financial centre. Other reasons are more subjective, including the fantastic lifestyle we have in Sydney. To illustrate, if you look at my backdrop, this is a photo that I took myself on my iPhone in July, in the middle of lockdown, in the middle of winter. But we're not here to talk about the lifestyle. We're here to talk about why Sydney is a great place to set up business. So I would like to introduce our three panelists. So we've got Damien Gough, who's coming to us from Singapore. Damien is the head of Asia Pacific at Global Processing Services, also known as GPS, the trusted payments processing partner for leading fintechs. GPS has to date issued over 190 million physical and virtual cards enabled in over 48 countries. GPS has its headquarters in London with offices globally, including Singapore, and we're very privileged to have them here at Stone & Chalk in Sydney. Hi, Damien, thanks for joining us. We've also got Jason Latham, who's the CIO at Hey Group, which includes Hey Retail, Hey as a Service, the cloud-native embedded finance platform offering a full suite of microservices. Hey is a global fintech with its headquarters in Sydney. Hi, Jason, who's coming to us from Surrey Hills, not far from Sydney CBD.
Hi, Marianne.
And finally, we've got Lloyd Parata, who's the country manager for Australia and New Zealand for Bankfi, a global fintech with its headquarters in Manchester and offices globally, including here at Stone & Chalk in Sydney. The Bankfi platform enables banks to offer value-added services to small business customers. Hi, Lloyd, and thanks for joining us from Coogee today.
Thank you. Yes, good morning.
Okay, I've got a series of questions for all of you, and I might start with Damien, if that's okay. Okay, so Damien, tell us a little bit more about GPS. What is your elevator pitch?
Well, we're basically an API-first payment technology platform. So we enable innovative card programs for world-leading fintechs, digital challenger banks, and embedded finance players. So the platform has basically helped scale multiple unicorns now right around the world. So we power a vast array of prominent fintechs across Europe, right across Asia Pacific, and across the Middle East. So we've got clients like Revolut, Curve, Starling Bank, Zilch, WeLab Bank, and Payday. A really good mix of award-winning fintechs that have scaled not just often in one market across many, using the GPS Apex platform.
Wow. And in terms of the actual problem you're solving and how you're using technology for that, how would you explain that?
Look, if you're a fintech and you want to be a fintech unicorn in the issuing space, you basically want a flexible and modern platform that you can build upon and easily connect to the ecosystem across countries, across regions, across currencies, and actually pretty much any fungible asset class. So crypto is obviously the top one at the moment. And this is actually a really rare thing in our industry. People typically find a platform that's got restrictions in terms of its coverage and suitability for a particular region and particular markets, and certainly isn't connected. Where we really shine is we're basically connected to many banks, to many BIN sponsors, to card manufacturers and core banking tech providers all around the world. So as I said, we're live in 48 countries worldwide. And that's a very unique thing, as I said. And so that's kind of where we stand out. You're also looking for something that is easy to connect to, and the ecosystem is easy to connect to it. And so having really good APIs, a flexible operating model is important, but also having peace of mind that the platform you're sitting on is scale proven, it's resilient without sacrificing on innovation and agility. And that's something that I think we're really good at. We're constantly rolling out innovation releases without any downtime and maintaining 99.99% uptime. So it's pretty unique.
Fantastic. And you've got a lot of big customers there, Damien. What's the best feedback that you've received from one of your customers? And, you know, the type of feedback that says, okay, we've actually solved that problem, and that gives us the impetus to keep going and innovating. Yeah,
look, I think it is that global reach, that global coverage, global support that, as I said, is where we stand out and shine. And so if you look at one of our biggest clients that's actually live there in Sydney in Australia, and here in Singapore, it's Revolut. And so when we first hit Singapore as an expansion strategy, it was largely driven by the fact, which is often the case for us, that some of our biggest clients wanted to take that journey of expanding with us together in collaboration. And so Nikolai, the CEO of Revolut, certainly publicly said, like, he's thrilled that GPS is helping them on their launch in the APAC market. So we've taken them live in multiple markets now, including Australia. And so it's that support of a partnership that takes people on an expansion journey where the feedback is really positive. It effectively shows that we're a supportive partner, not a vendor, and someone that they can rely on, that brings effectively an extension of their business in terms of our experienced local teams that help them on their success journey. So then that's, I think, for us anyway, the feedback that really stands out is the quality of and depth and breadth of experience that our teams and our people bring right across the globe, basically.
Wow, awesome! That's great feedback from Revolut. That's great. And in terms of being in Sydney, how do you think it actually helps you with your ability to connect with the fintech ecosystem here and overseas?
Look, for me, it's really critical. The reason I say it's really critical, it's extremely important for us anyway, is, like, obviously, as I said, the global coverage is an important aspect to us. Now, Sydney it's a flagship city. Everyone around the world knows Sydney as a city. It is actually a really beautiful city. Now, it's a really good city on the basis that it's a very open ecosystem, which is really important. What I find actually increasingly across this payments landscape is it is actually quite fragmented. And for someone to stand up a program and move with speed, you effectively got to cobble together all the puzzle pieces to get your solution ready for market. And that effectively does mean you need to connect and collaborate. And Sydney is that type of environment where there's a lot of players present. And so I think being in Sydney for us gives us that connectedness to the Australian marketplace. And actually, it's a pretty connected location just generally across the region. And so for us, that ability to network, to build partnerships and drive success in that environment, obviously, it's really good. So it's important for us to be in Sydney.
Great. And we've really enjoyed having you here at Stone & Chalk. You started with about 2 or 3 people, and now you've grown, and we're actually moving to a bigger office this weekend as well. So well done. What are your growth plans beyond this particular period?
So we recently announced a huge growth raise. So we took in $300 million in growth funds to further invest in innovation and to help us really accelerate innovation in particular use cases. So digital banking, buy now, pay later, B2B virtual cards, financial empowerment, those types of things. So that money effectively is going to be really accelerating our innovation agenda, helping us enhance the technology even further from where it is today, and also expanding the team. So taking that concept of being what we call it a global company, global in coverage, but local in support, is something that we want to take to the next level by not just having Sydney, for example, as a hub, but actually start putting more people into some of the markets across Asia where we see that opportunity to really connect and collaborate within the market itself. And so we'll be putting more people across Asia in particular markets where we see huge potential for further growth for GPS.
Right, fantastic. Thanks, Damien. Jason, tell us a little bit about Hey. Hello. Is it the website's actually hello to Hey?
No, hellohey.co is the website for our retail platform, and I think has.co is the website for our as a service platform. So you mentioned the retail platform. I mean, our retail offering. I mean, we built a platform, and because we like to talk the talk rather than just walk the walk, it was always our intention to launch with a proven customer in market, which was our own. But probably, I mean, our focus at the moment is Hey as a service, which we look to providing extraordinary embedded financial services, and that's embedded finance in its purest form. We believe that payments and the movement of money should support our customers' actual USP and what they're offering. So, we cover a number of verticals. The offering we have, it covers the full gamut of payment services, but it's complete and yet entirely composable and can support many verticals. We're working with the government through small fintechs, through non-bank lenders, through many things. So we have a flavour, and that's our aim. Our aim is to, we've done the hard work. We expose those payments. We have what's a very simple offering. We offer a transactional account which is backed by access to the non-scheme rails, so MPP, DE, direct debits, as well as bin sponsorship, issued cards, card programs, so the scheme rails as well. And then behind that, we support it with switching, custom rules engines, world-class fraud, and things like that, financial crime. And we bring what we bring to that offering to enable those customers in any vertical is we bring the technology and the license to really enable them to get running, get on the live payment rails very, very quickly, and concentrate. What we like to do is allow people to concentrate on what their offering is and let payments just be something that enriches their offering.
So in terms of the time frame that you help narrow, I guess, with your clients, maybe give us an example of what it would be like without using Hey compared to what it's like using Hey.
So, I mean, for us to bring Hey Retail to market, that was a year of elapsed time, or just under a year of elapsed time. But considering the effort we threw into it, it was many man years of effort, and there's a lot of things and a lot of expertise that you require to do that in terms of dealing with the schemes, with the regulators to get the license to move these payments around. The first customer that we took live to market, we worked closely with, and they went from working with us to actually writing their first loan and having a transaction account to back that in 90 days. The second customer we did that in 30 days. And we're actually in a position now where, we always claim that we're not the critical path. We can actually, we have a unique offering where we work with Visa, who've been a fantastic partner for us, but we work with Visa and with the Coin Network, and we're able to get customers ahead of their due diligence to that, actually working in a limited fashion on the live rails and able to prove their proposition while they're going through due diligence. And we can do that in under 10 days.
Okay, so you've gone from a year to 90 days to 30 days and now less than 10 days. That's fantastic.
It is. And maybe an answer for later when we talk about growth, but we're actively trying to reduce that and make it low touch as well. So it's very, very exciting, and we get fantastic feedback from clients, but we allow them to concentrate on what they're good at, and the stuff we're good at just fits in. Fantastic.
So you mentioned those clients who you've taken from 90 days to 30 days, and the most recent one 10 days. What sort of feedback do they give you about how it's helped them do what they do best, because you've been able to help them with this particular area?
Yeah, I consider this one. There's probably a couple of areas of feedback that I've particularly enjoyed, and I think is good for us. So the first one a direct quote, which is from a customer we've not taken live yet. But as they were signing up, they said one of the reasons was that, and this is direct quote, you can do anything and you never say no. Now, I'm not sure that's something we're going to want to be held to forever, but it was great feedback. And we've not, with the customers we've dealt with yet, the platform we've built, is so scalable. We've not found the limits, and long may that continue. Probably the second thing is we've managed to find a really good cultural fit with our partners, and we've been able to concentrate on the people. The tech's an enabler. As I mentioned to you earlier, we were quite quiet in the market while we were busy bringing this product to market, because we wanted to walk the walk. So most of our sales has been we can concentrate on the people because the tech's there. It's not vapor, and we've had feedback. They love the team, they love the way we do things, and generally been waiting for a partner who can help them realize the value of their customer. So that cultural aspect as well is something we'd be particularly proud of.
Fantastic. And what's been your experience of Sydney? I know when we chatted last week, you've lived in the UK for most of your life, and then this is your first time in Australia, and you arrived, I think, last year in the middle of lockdown. So you haven't really seen much of Australia. What's your experience as an organisation in Sydney?
Well, experience as an organisation, I mean, as a company, we were born in the UK. Our founders are Sydney born and bred, but he was in the UK. I was in the UK. We've known each other for 20 years now, and he had the idea to found this company. The opportunity was in Australia and was in Sydney. So we founded this company. We started building the tech out in the UK. But we chose to locate the headquarters in Sydney. I've got to be honest, my arm did not need twisting to move to Australia. So from a personal perspective, myself and my family, we absolutely love it here. And even that, I brought lockdown with me effectively. I arrived in January of 2020, and the whole Southern Hemisphere for me currently consists of Sydney and not Sydney. And as you said, I've not really had much chance to see any of not Sydney, but we still love it. But I mean, going back to the company, I mean, the opportunities that we saw, this is a great ecosystem. It's open, it's connected, people are friendly. There's the 1.5 degrees of separation, which makes keeping a secret very difficult, but makes doing business, very, very easy. But equally, the citizens of Australia, they're digital natives. They're it's a great place, to try new things and to get new things off the ground. So, Sydney and the ecosystem here, the opportunity, the enthusiasm, the growth, the hunger, it's a great place to be. We chose to come here, and I, personally, I'm an import that doesn't want to be exported.
Fantastic. Thanks. We might move on to Lloyd. Hi, Lloyd.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. Tell us about Bankfi.
Sure. So Bankfi was founded in 2016 by Mark Hartley. Mark is reasonably well known in the payments industry. He founded Clear to Pay in 2003, which he sold off to FIS in 2014. And then went on to start Bankfi. Really, the concept behind Bankfi is pretty straightforward. We want to enable banks to become the single platform through which a small business customer manages their business using a bank-branded online channel or a mobile device. So we're a little bit different from the other fintechs in that we don't actually sell against the banks. We kind of work with the banks. So we partner with the banks, and we want the banks to transform their sort of business channels, because those channels have traditionally only been used to check account balances, transfer money, and make payments. And we want to transform those accounts into the place where small business customers manage the business finances. So we're an embedded banking platform, and we provide banks with integrated services. We provide collections, invoicing, payments, cash forecasting, and lending, and all that's from within the bank's existing online channels. The platform itself is based on an embedded chart of accounts, and we basically embed that chart of accounts into the bank account so that the bookkeeping is all seamlessly driven from the banking data.
Excellent. And in terms of if you're solving a particular problem, how are you, what exact problem are you solving and how are you using the technology to do that?
Sure. So Bankfi was originally developed to help small business customers solve their late payments problems. And we all know that late payments is a significant problem for the SMBs. In fact, I read a survey recently that said something like 25% of SMBs are paying themselves late because their customers pay them late. And they're spending 18 hours a month chasing late payments and another 18 hours working on accounting and financial and payment functions. So basically SMBs are spending 4 days a month on accounting and finance, which is time that they can't spend on their business. So that was the reason that Bankfi was originally conceived from the SMB side. On the banking side, what we've seen is that for decades, banks have built siloed product channels for their customers to do their banking. It's a very disjointed channel strategy, and it's often really just a reflection of the bank's organization rather than the customer's needs. In fact, I've been selling to banks for 25 years or more, selling financial services. And in all that time, until I joined Bankfi, no bank had ever asked me, hey, what have you got that can help our small business customers? It was never on people's radar, never on the bank's radar. So what we're seeing now is that banks can't really decide whether their sole traders and micro businesses are retail customers or business customers. They're often described as retail plus plus, because sometimes they behave more like consumers, but other times they behave more like business. And this often ends up with banks forcing customers to open expensive bank accounts to get access to necessary tools that are not available for their personal accounts. And the other thing I'd say is that over the past 5 or 6 years, we've seen a lot of challenger banks, neobanks, payment processors, accounting package vendors, and fintechs that have all been responsible for sort of fraying the edge of banking and what many commentators are calling, the unbundling of banks. So these non-bank vendors are all either looking to pick off lucrative service lines from the bank, such as lending, and become the primary interface through which the business owner manages their business. We're seeing banks facing a considerable and growing competitive challenge to their position in the small business sector. From a tech perspective, Bankfi is a cloud-based platform as a service. The offerings are delivered as a set of microservices that banks can embed within their existing online banking channels or in an online banking service. SMB customers then access these services through apps on their mobile or on a web application. I think one other important thing to note is Bankfi's offering is not an off-the-shelf digital product. It's a platform designed to bring new capabilities to the digital offerings of the bank. And we have these microservices that consumed on an individual basis. So the bank may choose to start with invoicing, payments, and account offering, and then they might want to add on cash management and tax vaults. So we allow the bank to start and with a small offering and grow and expand by leveraging the microservices that are built into the platform hosted on the cloud.
Excellent. And what's some of the awesome feedback that you receive from your customers? What are they telling you that they like?
I was thinking about this the other day, and what popped into my head is I was having coffee in the last break between COVID. So what was that, May, June timeframe? I was having coffee with a bank small business GM, and we've been talking for an hour and just chewing the fat, and I was explaining to him how Bankfi operates and how we get what we white label. And I thought he got it, but I wasn't quite sure. Anyway, as we were sort of standing up to go, he said, he had a bit of an aha moment. He said, oh, I get it. He said, Bankfi is not a fintech that's targeting our customers. You're more of a bank business partner whose tech helps us defend our small business customers from the dozens of fintechs chipping away at our business. And that's kind of right. Yep, that's exactly what we do from a banking perspective. And that's kind of the best feedback I've had from the 6 or 7 months we've been operating in Australia.
Yeah, that's great feedback, because a lot of people, they go on the offensive, right? They sort of, their strategies to get more customers, but they forget about the ones that they have. So that's awesome feedback. That's great. And being in Sydney, how critical do you see that to your ability to connect with the fintech ecosystem, which obviously includes banks as well?
Yeah. Look, I think when we made the decision we've seen, I think without doubt, moving to Sydney was the right decision. But the best decision we made, I think, was to join the Stone and Chalk organisation. The ecosystem there is just fantastic and something I've never ever experienced before. When I came back from Singapore a couple of years ago, in my previous role, we were based in one of the more, what I would say is one of the more traditional serviced offices. And the difference between these two serviced offices really is like night and day. And I'll give you a couple of examples. When I set up shop back in April, went into Stone and Chalk, set up shop, within 2 weeks of moving in and getting set up there, I'd been connected to accountants, lawyers, British Chamber of Commerce, introduced to a couple of large banks and consulting firms, across 3 different states. And all these people are part of the Stone and Chalk ecosystem. 3 years ago, when I came back and moved into this other serviced office, getting meetings like this took months. LinkedIn searches, who to talk to, Google searches, and God knows how many emails and cold calls. So the ecosystem that Stone and Chalk provide is just exceptionally helpful, and has really, really helped us ramp up our business. And the second example I'll give you is just last week. Came out of lockdown, and I had a bank contact us who said, we're interested in knowing more about the PEPPOL International e-invoicing network, which is about to become a standard for the New South Wales government and the federal government next year. So I reached out to Andrew Davis, who's one of the Stone and Chalk ambassadors that I met when I first arrived in Sydney, and we arranged to meet for a coffee. And over coffee with Andrew the next day, he gave me the names of 2 fintechs in Stone and Chalk who are part of the PEPPOL network. And so this ability to be introduced, to make connections, is really gold to a startup like Bankfi that's moved into Australia and just get up and running. We've only been here 7 months, and there's no doubt that our progress and the connections we're making and the speed of the sales cycle is really down to a lot of the ecosystem support and help and the connections we're getting from Stone and Chalk.
Fantastic. I'm blushing, Lloyd. And just for the record, we did not have a conversation about this beforehand.
We did not. No,
Lloyd and I
we
talk about this. So that's great. Thank you for the feedback. And Lloyd, I know you've only just been here, like as in this year, but what are your growth plans at this stage?
Yeah, sure. So when we sat down in April, May and sort of planned the year out, we were focusing really just on Australia and New Zealand. And we've made really good progress. We've got one bank starting a pilot next week, fingers crossed. And we've got another 2 banks that we're well engaged with. But then what happened is people in Singapore that I know, because I lived up there a bit, started to hear that I was at Bankfi, and our growth plans in Asia, which were supposed to start next year, have really accelerated. And we're now engaged with 3 banks in Singapore and a bank in Hong Kong. So the Asian expansion is moving way ahead of schedule. And we're also engaged in sales pursuits in the USA, which wasn't part of the plan back in the first quarter. We've got a couple of banks moving down the path of vendor evaluation over there. So our HQ team in the UK, they're sort of managing Europe and the US, and I'm managing Australia and sort of APAC. So we plan to grow. We're looking to hire down here next year when we get these customers on board and set up an office in Singapore.
Awesome. Fantastic. Okay. Going back to Damien, since we're on the topic of Singapore, on a day-to-day basis, how do you manage your team in the Asia Pacific region and specifically in Sydney from Singapore?
So we have a pretty loose matrix structure. So basically we've got, depending on the function, people in AP that are reporting directly into a line manager in the UK, which is basically where our global HQ is. But they will have a dotted line into someone, i.e. the country head, it's one example where they're based, or the region head. So most of the people, everyone in Australia reports up into a country head, a regional head or country head there, and others in Singapore report up into me here in Singapore. So what we basically do is we'll have a weekly country huddle. So the Australia team get together on a weekly basis, especially during COVID. Obviously, it's important to get together when people are in lockdown. And so that's been happening at a country level. And then there's a group-wide get together on a weekly basis which is quite informal as well. We have a very formal monthly update where everyone gets together and shares the general progress, the plans, and basically look and collectively looks to address any problems that we're seeing as a team across the region, so that we could obviously work in unison to address those and move forward. It's obviously been embracing Teams a lot of late. Teams in Microsoft Teams. So we've become masters of that, building lots of VC calls across the region on a regular basis. So we should have semi FaceTime with each other that way. That once we get post COVID and we're traveling freely, then I think obviously be a lot more free travel across the region, where we'll obviously be interacting across markets and traveling to see each other on a regular basis. But obviously at the moment that hasn't been happening.
Yeah, and I think if I'm not mistaken, there the bubble, the Singapore Sydney bubble, is that open now, or is that?
It's open. I'm actually in Sydney all of next week.
Oh wow, okay.
So yeah, no, it's definitely open, and that actually the beauty of it is I don't have to do quarantine on arrival. I'm fully vaccinated, so I can fly into Sydney as I do on the weekend, and then spend the week there, and then fly back on the weekend, which is the plan for next week. And the plan is I'll start doing that more regularly now that obviously the travel bubbles have started to be created. So that will help.
Fantastic. And I've got a question for both you and Jason, because I know you have a partnership to deliver solutions to the market, and I'll be interested to find out a little bit more about that. And just as a bit of a backstory, we had a fintech in here who's actually grown so big now they've actually left, but they actually approached me last year and they said, "Oh, can you please connect us to GPS, because we know they're here as well." And we connected them to GPS in Singapore, and then the next thing that there's a commercial relationship happening with Hey as well. So I kind of love hearing these stories, because it was basically a corridor conversation that started here, then we connected with Singapore, and then you guys are all working together with this particular fintech. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about the partnership that you have together.
Yeah, so from our perspective, I mean, we're very, very proud that we own our own ecosystem, and we own all of that IP, and we look to accelerate others to market, as I spoke to earlier. But where we can enrich our platform, with expertise that helps us get to market, we'll do that. And GPS, GPS is one partner that supported our speed to market. And actually, will help support our growth as well, because if you look at the growth plans we have, we're currently seeking licenses in Singapore, as well as the EU and the UK. And we have growth plans where we're looking to support Aussies to export abroad and to take their offering into wider markets, but also to bring some innovative fintechs into Australia as well. And again, GPS along with other partners. Visa, massive partner for us on that. We also work with another company that I know has got a good presence in Singapore and Asia Pacific, which is Featurespace. We can't build everything, so we leverage on other people's expertise. We chose GPS, because of what they give us and the flexibility that we can use that to enrich our platform and again concentrate on bringing that wider product to market. And similar with Featurespace, right? We're not fraud experts, but our platform has, one of the strongest, fraud engines sitting underneath it. And again, we expose that to our customers. So yeah, I mean, our partnership with GPS has been great for us. They've been supportive with us from the start. Their growing APAC presence has been brilliant. I mean, initially it was easy to deal with because when we started the relationship, we were in London and so were they. But we've sort of growing together out here in Asia Pacific, and I hope it will be a bilateral partnership. I think we're talking about closer ties. Yeah, it's a good partnership for us, and hopefully Damien's about to say the same.
Yeah, no, of course, Jason. Definitely mutual respect for both organisations. We're obviously looking for companies that are trying to drive innovation and take friction out of the entire ecosystem, and obviously Hey is absolutely doing that. they take it to the next level in terms of removing the friction to connect to an ecosystem and actually move with speed, as Jason articulated really well earlier on. So for us, where we look at our ideal type of partners / customers, Hay's actually epitomizing that in terms of the way they're leveraging our tech. What we try to do is when we provide our tech to people is we try to be flexible and allow them to consume it on a modular basis. And not everyone uses all of our tech, they'll use parts of it. And so as they take that growth journey forward, and if I go back to say Revolut as an example, in the early days, Revolut actually used our platform completely end to end. And over time, they decouple components from our platform and actually don't use it in its entirety anymore. Now, Hey will probably take the same journey as do many of our enablement partners. So we give them the baseline foundational tech they need to get started. We give them access to multiple markets. And then obviously as they evolve and expand as a business, then potentially Hey, and hopefully not too fast, Jason, they'll decouple components that they might rely on from us today and actually increasingly do more themselves. That's actually something that's quite unique to us. We're not looking to be a monolithic provider to people to say, hey, use all of this. We're saying actually, you've got a flexible system here, use what you need to and decouple bits you don't need over time. And so Hey certainly is embracing that strategy, and we're really happy to have them as someone who's using our baseline tech to help with the issuing side of their business.
Fantastic. I've got a question here that's come through the chat from the audience, and it's about talent. And I think talent's always, top of mind for everybody, and particularly now that Australia's been shut to the rest of the world for a long time. So I'd be interested in all of your views about how you look for talent, and what are the main levers that you can pull because you're in Sydney. And I think, Jason, you answered that before, that you didn't need any arm twisting to get you down here. But might start with you, Lloyd. What do you think of the talent market and attracting good people to work for startups and scale-ups, and particularly fintechs in Sydney?
Sure. Yeah, so in the 7 months I've been here, particularly the last 3 months, I would say I get pinged on LinkedIn once a week or once every other week from someone who's inquiring about looking to join Bankfi as a sort of, they see I'm sure they go out and contact other fintechs as well. But what I've seen around when I sit in the office in Stone & Chalk is the talent. There's some very, very talented people here. We've got great universities here, right? There's no shortage for where I sit in my space in banking and payments and invoicing and fintech. There is not a shortage of really good people out there. They cost a lot. That's the difference between when I was here previously. You've got to pay, I would say, good money to get the right sort of person. But certainly I've had coffee with half a dozen people, and especially during the May-June period in that breakdown, we were looking to hire later this year, and then COVID sort of slowed it down. And any one of those folks would have been really good engineers. So, dev engineers, pre-sales guys. I don't know if I wouldn't say it's unlimited, but certainly the amount of good people who are really willing to roll up their sleeves and say, okay, it's just you and me, Batman and Robin, let's get on with it, in these conversations. There's no shortage of good people out there that want to sort of move, I guess, from the big organizations. They might want to, might be one of the big multinationals, and they want to come across and join the fintech. You do have to explain to them that life is a lot different when you're on your own, there's only two of you, but certainly the talent that I've met and had coffee with, and I plan to hire in January, it's terrific. It's really first class down here.
Excellent. And what about you, Damien? Obviously you've grown from like 2 people to 8 to 10, and now you're growing again. How's the talent search journey been for you here?
I'm an Aussie when I make this statement, so I'm going to be biased, but I'm going to say it anyway. Just generally, if I step back and think, just generally, what's the work culture like in Australia? It's actually it is actually a very inclusive, generally very hardworking, motivated workforce. And so for me and my experience working right across Asia, we have been very impressed overall with the level of productivity that we get out of our Australian team members. Now, Australia is a very inclusive culture, and you've got cultures from all around the world, but just generally across all of those cultures that exist within Australia, there is a real go get them attitude. Let's get things done. People are open-minded. People are embracing change. Like obviously digital adoption, it's right up there. Like all the things you're looking for in terms of an environment that's stable, easy to work within, with a workforce that's kind of motivated and happy to just dig into things and get stuff done. Like, I think that really does exist in the Australian marketplace. And Jason captured it really well. Like, it's actually a beautiful city. It's a stunning place to work. Like, I used to catch a ferry to work when I worked for Visa in Sydney. Every day I'd be jumping on the boat in the morning, coming across that beautiful harbour that's behind you right now, pulling in literally behind your head into the Keys every day. And it was a magic lifestyle, like, it's absolutely magic. And then you go to the beaches on the weekends, and they're pristine, stunning beaches. The island's populated. You could jump on a boat. You could go to the Sydney fish markets, get seafood and bottle of wine, jump on a boat, go to the island. Like, the lifestyle's magical. And so to say to someone, hey, we really rate you, can you come and join us in Sydney, is not a hard sell. Like, it's a stunning place to live. And so not only is there a great talent pool within the market, it's actually easy to pull people into the market. Like, Australia as a government doesn't make it too onerous and restrictive to pull people in if they've got good experience. So you can actually attract people to the market without any difficulty. But certainly if you look at the size and experience of the people in payments in that market in particular, it's a very developed market. There's a lot of very savvy people that know payments and know digital technologies really well within the market. And so pulling in the right skill sets is certainly something that's readily available within the market.
Fantastic. And I'm really pleased with your answer, Damien, because I know you're originally from Brisbane, so you're a Brisbane boy at heart. But thank you for flying the Sydney flag.
Yeah, no, well, my mother, my mum's mum, so my grandma, was actually in Manly, and Manly is where you catch a ferry over to get to the Sydney city. Now, there's some beautiful suburbs of some amazing places to live. So to be honest, when I grew up, I always used to pine for being based in Sydney, because I love my trips to Sydney. And that's unanimous feedback from anyone across our business who comes to visit in Australia for business reasons. They love it. Like, it's a great place to be. And so once again, attracting and pulling people in, super easy.
Fantastic. And Jason, any other comment? I know you gave us a pretty good plug here in Sydney before.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of talent, just going away from Sydney, I mean, the market is ferocious at the moment, ferociously competitive, and we're looking to scale, quite dramatically over the next 12 months, and we're looking to build some, across all aspects of our business, but from my point of view in particular with technology. And I think, as Lloyd says, it's expensive. These things, these people are well regarded and expect decent compensation. But if you want to attract the best and deliver the best, you need to. And I think it's about offering a fun role. And all three of the companies that are talking today and talking to Hay in specific, particularly, that's the thing we offer them. They come, they believe in what we're doing. They believe in sort of the changes and things we're trying to drive and the stuff we're trying to achieve. And it's hooks like that as well. And, I'm a technologist. I've been a developer all my life, but I think for Hay, it's the people that we've hired, both back in London and in the UK and in Australia, but as well, the people I've met since I came to Sydney has been wonderful and eye-opening. And there is a lot of talent here. And, it's quite interesting because I have this conversation with our CEO quite a lot. There's a massive amount of Australia and Sydney-based talent in Europe. So it was no surprise to me that was going to be the case. And to echo Damien's point, I've worked in some. I used to walk across London Bridge and glance over at Tower Bridge every day on my way to work for Hay's London office, and that's that's iconic and beautiful. But when I drive across the Harbour Bridge, or when I get the ferry, or even when I go under the Harbour Tunnel, and I know that it's just above me, that's still magical. And probably one last anecdote. I mean, my wife and family came with me to Sydney, obviously, and my wife, when she set foot on Australian soil for the first time, that was the day we moved. And I'd been very careful not to try and oversell my enthusiasm for this city. But I think it turns out I couldn't have oversold it. And she wants to go back even less than I did.
Fantastic. We're actually running out of time, but we've got one last question that's come through, which I'll pass it on to everyone to answer, about the differences and similarities in doing business in Singapore and in Sydney. I mean, I think, Damien, you've sort of answered that question. It's quite easy to connect between those two cities. It's a lot easier now. But for example, if you're giving advice to people setting up in Singapore or Sydney, etc., who've already got offices in either city, any particular tips?
Well, actually, I will make one comment actually on the comparisons. Like, obviously, we highly rate Singapore as well. It's a fantastic hub for tapping into Asia. You basically can't beat it. In terms of tapping into the Asia countries, it's the pinnacle. But it really depends on your growth aspirations as to whether Sydney stands out. So another name I actually call Sydney to others is it's Sandbox Sydney. It is the perfect sandbox if you want to expand into the US, which obviously most people do because it's obviously the granddaddy. And if you want to expand into the UK, it actually is very commonly used by Citi, by Visa, by MasterCard, by many big international technology and payment companies as where they do their test and pilots. And that's actually not very well known, but actually, having been at Visa for 9 years, I know for a fact that they've done many of their pilots in the market. Now, Sydney as a city is 5 million people, and it's a very easy city to start with in terms of piloting your tech and start refining it, getting it right, then taking it across the market. So you then go from 5 to 25, or just over now, nearly 26. And so given everything we've talked about, high digital adoption, open-minded culture, good GDP, all those sort of things, that if you could do a comparison, it's like a mini UK, it's like a mini US. And so if you get it right in Australia, chances are you're set for success when you go to the UK and the US. Problem is, if you do, they're very competitive markets as well. You don't want to go in there and do all your learnings in those markets. You actually want to get it right, then hit the market hard. So if you take the journey of, say, an Afterpay or something like that, they've got it right in Australia, they've tweaked the formula, and then they've hit the market, and obviously they're just going gangbusters now. So I think that's where Sydney really stands out. Depending on your growth mindset and what your aspirations are in terms of target markets, if you're going after the English-speaking countries, then obviously they're the big ones to go after. And Australia is the perfect place to start it, get it right, and then expand out to those bigger markets. And so for me, Sandbox Sydney is the perfect place to do that.
Fantastic. Lloyd?
Yeah, look, I think as selling is very different between Australia and Singapore. I lived up there 14 years, and when I came out of Australia, if you're a sales rep or sales manager, you go and talk to a bank about trying to sell them some software, you're very quickly the Australian, and I'm a Kiwi, right? So I'll come at this from a Kiwi, but the Australians are very black and white. They're like, yeah, mate, or no, mate, right? It's quite simple, right? And they're either, yep, this is a really good product or a project. Yeah, let me get my boss and we have another meeting next week. It's that simple. In Asia, it's definitely not that simple. And I think when a lot of expats go up to Asia and try and start the sort of sales process, selling into Singapore or selling into Singaporeans or Malays or Thais, the whole culture is extremely different. You can be in Singapore and you can go and meet someone at a bank, and you'll come away from there. You've only been in town a week, and we come over there and you got this Aussie-fied view of how the meeting went, and then you have a local with you and say, well, that's not what he said. So I think, and I think when expats, especially if you're on your own, if you go up there like I did and set the business up from scratch, 2004, it was just me, and then I go and had to build out a team, and did that a couple of times. And there's a lot of learnings. And I think that when people, there's a couple of good books you can buy about understanding the culture, but I do think that, down here, in Oz, you might just say, hey, let's meet for a coffee. And I think in Singapore, it took me 6 or 9 months to learn that I really need to go and have a kopi tea, right? The local tea, because so much is done over kopi tea. It's a bit of a acquired taste with condensed milk. But I definitely, from sort of selling up in Asia, I made more progress and had more really good conversations sitting at a kopi town with a local person, a Singaporean or a Malay, or someone who's in Singapore, than I did sort of in a business meeting. So I think there's a lot of cultural differences, and you need to learn to be a little bit softer and things like that. But it's different. It's definitely different too. And I noticed when I come back to Australia, it's like, right, this is in my face again. The guy says no, you just move on. So there are a lot of different, and I would encourage anybody who moves up there on their own to set up a business to find a local to tag team with, because you can learn so much from, a Singaporean who's been up there rather than you just flying into town and setting up shop.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lloyd. And I think that's all we have time for. So I'd love to thank you all for joining me today. It's been a fantastic conversation, and hope to see you all in person soon, including Damien next week. All right. Thanks, everyone.